My role in the family was a sham. They sold my computer for my sister's sake. On my birthday, my father sent a curt message. "Leave if you can't handle it," I shot back as I walked out, locking down the accounts and leaving behind a file that unraveled their financial world. My name's Nicholas, 26, and until recently I lived in what I believed was my home, a modest two-story house in a quiet suburb. It's where my parents raised me and my younger sister, Brooklyn. To outsiders, we might have looked like a typical family, but beneath the surface, it was a suffocating mental prison draped in loyalty, masked by obligation and heavy with guilt. I was always the reliable one. Since high school, I worked part-time and it was expected I'd contribute to family expenses. At first, it was minor, my clothes, phone bill, gas for the car, reasonable enough. But after college, I was paying for groceries half the time, covering the internet and handing over cash for emergencies that always seemed to involve someone else, usually Brooklyn. Brooklyn, 22, has a charm that hides her manipulation and no one ever challenges her. She's been pampered her whole life. She refuses to work, claiming she's still discovering herself. She failed another course, but school's just hard for her. She blew through $1,200 in a week on makeup and takeout, yet we're not supposed to judge she's stressed. Meanwhile, I earned my IT degree, secured a remote job, and still supported the household. Whenever I tried to set limits, I was reminded how lucky I was to live rent-free, as if that justified their endless demands. The money wasn't the worst part. It was their ridicule. My dad would smirk when I spoke up, saying, "You'll thank me for keeping you humble." My mom just stared with quiet resentment, as if I'd broken some sacred rule. And Brooklyn, she once laughed and called me the family's cash machine. I forced a smile, but I shouldn't have. Everything changed on my birthday. I woke early. The kitchen was cold. No card, no text, not even a gesture. I didn't expect much. Just a quiet day, maybe a break from the guilt. I made coffee, sat at my desk, and checked my messages. Then I saw Dad's text. No warmth, no kindness, just "sold your laptop. Your sister needed a new phone. Be grateful we provide for you." I reread it, stunned. That laptop wasn't just mine. It was my work, my livelihood. I worked remotely. Without it, I was stuck. They knew that. Then came another message. "Also, you're paying her tuition. $2,100 by Friday." My hands shook. It wasn't a request, it was a command. No reasoning, no shame, just expectation. Brooklyn had dropped 3 classes last semester and failed another. She wasn't even a full-time student anymore, just coasting, yet I was supposed to fund her. I typed back, "Not happening." Dad's response was instant, "Then leave." "You're done," no yelling, no discussion, just those cold, final words. I didn't scream or cry. I stood, went to my room, and started packing. Most of my stuff, clothes, work gear, backup drive, was bought with my own money. I didn't say goodbye or slam the door. I left quietly, like I was stepping out for a meeting. But before I went, I left something on the dining table, a folder neatly organized. Inside were printouts, receipts, bank statements, proof of every dollar I'd spent over 3 years, phone bills, groceries, streaming services, car insurance that covered Brooklyn too. I included an email from last year when I loaned Dad $4,500 for the mortgage. He never paid it back. On top of the folder, I left a note written carefully. "You wanted me gone. Here's your wish. The rest follows." Then I walked away. The next morning, my phone lit up. Missed calls, texts, even a voicemail from an unknown number, probably Brooklyn using someone else's phone. I didn't answer, but read every message. Brooklyn was frantic. Her new phone wasn't syncing with her apps. She didn't know I managed the family phone plan. Her college account showed an unpaid balance, blocking her registration. The automatic payment from my account had failed. My mistake. Mom was unraveling, leaving a long voicemail swinging between tears and anger, accusing me of abandoning the family and begging me to think of Brooklyn's future. This from the woman who once said my remote job wasn't real work. Dad tried everything, even calling my boss using my emergency contact info, leaving a voicemail claiming he was worried about my mental health. My boss forwarded it with a single comment, "Wow." Dad also contacted my friends and even my college ex, asking if I was with her. He was desperate. Their household was falling apart and they didn't yet know the worst. That first night, I stayed in a quiet Airbnb, booked with emergency savings I'd kept hidden. It was a simple 1-bedroom loft on the city's edge. Nothing fancy, just calm, clean, with fast Wi-Fi and no judgmental glares over dinner. I could finally breathe. No guilt, no subtle insults, just me, a silent phone, and peace. That night, I reviewed everything I still controlled, accounts, logins, shared plans. I laughed. Dad acted like he ruled because we lived under his roof. But like many old-school control freaks, he didn't understand the digital world. I'd set up everything: Wi-Fi, utilities, shared banking, cloud storage. Over time, I'd become the one quietly running the house while they assumed it was automatic. I didn't act impulsively that night. I just waited, letting them stew in their panic. The next morning, Brooklyn texted, "What's this, Nicholas? Why's my student account locked? Where's the tuition money?" No greeting, no apology, just her usual entitled tone. "Then, Dad, you'll fix this. You better." "Nope, not anymore." That's when I cut the final tie. I logged into the family cloud account I'd created at 17 because my parents couldn't figure out Google Drive. It held everything: tax records, property documents, Brooklyn's school files, Mom's insurance papers. They dumped it all there without a thought. I saved a personal copy for myself, I'm not heartless, and then revoked everyone else's access. Next, I logged into the joint credit account. They'd added me when Dad's credit score tanked, needing my name for a higher limit. I hadn't used it in ages, but they had. I paid off the balance with my savings, then requested removal from the account, citing unauthorized charges. That locked the account pending investigation. I wasn't worried, they had no case against me. Then I contacted the bank. I'd set up their online banking when Dad needed tech help. He never changed the credentials, giving me full admin access. His oversight. I removed myself as a secondary holder on the savings account, froze the shared debit card, and filed a fraud report for the laptop sale. I'd found the buyer's post, messages, and receipt Dad emailed himself, a careless move. Selling my work computer wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. After that, I sent one group message, calm and direct. "You made it clear I'm not family. It's official now. Don't contact me unless it's through a lawyer." The fallout was swift. Someone from the college's finance office called. An impersonator had tried to access Brooklyn's account over the phone to bypass the payment block. The woman sounded shaken but professional. I explained the situation, and she added extra ID verification to the account. Brooklyn couldn't register until she paid her own balance. Mom texted, "Please call. We can resolve this. You're still our son." Then, "We're family, Nicholas. You're going too far. Then you're being childish. Come home or we'll involve the police." Then, "Dad, I always knew you were ungrateful. You've turned against your own blood. Don't come crawling back when you've burned every bridge." I didn't respond. Instead, I took a walk to clear my head. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened, not overjoyed, but free. The invisible weight of responsibility had lifted. I used to think leaving would make me the bad guy, that choosing myself over family meant I was selfish. Now I saw it clearly: survival. They didn't treat me like a son, they treated me like a resource. When I stopped being useful, they discarded me. What they didn't expect was that I'd do the same. They didn't know about the letter I left, tucked under the folder on the dining table. A plain envelope with Brooklyn's name on it. It wasn't cruel or dramatic, just honest. Inside were printouts of every tuition payment I'd made for her over 2 years, every receipt, every dollar. Next to each, I noted the dates she promised to repay me or take her studies seriously, pulled from her own texts. Below that, I added her grade report: 5 dropped classes, 3 incompletes, 2 fails, and 1 lone C in a course called Digital Media and Society. It wasn't an attack, it was truth. At the bottom, I wrote one line: "You said you'd step up when it mattered. That time passed. I'm done. Build your own future. No signature needed." She'd know. Later, Brooklyn texted one word: "Why?" Not a dramatic plea or accusation, just that raw question. For a moment, I paused. We're siblings. We shared bunk beds, watched cartoons every Saturday, held hands at her first dentist visit. She made me get well cards in 5th grade. Those memories were real happy. That's what makes betrayal so messy. Things weren't always bad, but gratitude turned to entitlement, and family became servitude. I didn't reply, not because I had nothing to say, but because her why wasn't about understanding. She was just shocked there were consequences. A high school friend, Tyler, called later. Dad had reached out trying to talk sense into me. Tyler hung up after 30 seconds. "Man," he said, "your dad called you unhinged for leaving." "What's that about?" I laughed harder than I had in weeks. That night, another unknown number called. I ignored it. A voicemail followed, Mom, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. "We need to talk, Nicholas. You're being heartless. You think you're proving something, but you're just hurting your family because you think you're better than us." Brooklyn's broken. "Your father hasn't eaten. I hope you're happy." I saved it not to use against her, but as proof they still didn't get it. They weren't upset about their actions. They were upset they'd lost control. I checked my accounts. The tuition payments were stopped. The cloud account was locked. Shared services showed password changes. One by one, I cut the invisible ties they'd bound me with, and it felt liberating. But something lingered, not about money, the phone, or the laptop. Not even Brooklyn's tuition or my job. It was about worth. About how people treat someone they think they own. I gave everything until I was just a wallet with Wi-Fi. When I stopped giving, I became disposable. That was the real betrayal, not Brooklyn's freeloading, not Dad selling my laptop, but realizing love in that house was conditional and I'd missed the fine print. They thought I'd come back. They didn't know I'd been moving my belongings to a storage unit for 6 months. Sentimental items, private documents, savings. They didn't know I'd consulted a lawyer the week before, or that years ago, when Dad had surgery and I handled the bills, they'd signed a power of attorney, giving me more control than they realized. I hadn't used it yet, but they'd handed me more power than they intended. Now, outside their grasp, I saw it clearly. I didn't know what was next, but I waited 3 days, not out of spite or fear, but to see what they'd do when the anger faded, when the shock settled, when they faced silence. I wanted one sign of remorse, one hint they understood their actions. There was none. Dad's final message sealed it. You're punishing your family over petty cash. What kind of man abandons his blood? We raised you your whole life, and this is your thanks? You'll regret this. Regret brought clarity. It was like a fogged window had been wiped clean. I saw them not as loving guardians, but as emotional parasites thriving on my silence and support. I was done waiting. I contacted my lawyer. Those power of attorney papers from Dad's heart surgery 4 years ago, when I paid the mortgage and fought hospital bills to save thousands, they were still valid. Dad never revoked them. After reviewing them, my lawyer found I had legal authority over some financial assets, including a savings account for Brooklyn's college fund, a fund I'd contributed to because Dad said it was for the family. I had proof. Bank transfers, emails, everything. With my lawyer, I filed to reclaim my contributions, $10,000. It wasn't theft. It was legal, backed by documents, and allowed under the terms. I took only my share, nearly half the balance. I braced for chaos, but what came next surprised me. Brooklyn showed up at my new apartment, a simple place across town, a fresh start with no guilt or expectations. I hadn't shared the address, but Brooklyn always had her ways. She knocked frantically. I opened the door and said nothing, just looked at her. She looked worn, hollow, no makeup, hair in a messy bun, no flashy purse or clothes, just someone facing reality. I need to talk, she said. I let her in, not out of obligation, but to end this on my terms. She sat on the couch's edge, unsure if she belonged. I didn't offer a drink or ask how she was. Why are you here? I asked. Tears welled, but I saw panic, not remorse. Everything's falling apart, she whispered. Mom's barely speaking, Dad's losing it. He called the bank, yelling about fraud. They froze the account. He's blaming me. I raised an eyebrow. She flinched. You took my tuition money. No, I said evenly. I took back what I put in. That fund existed because I helped build it. She looked down. I didn't ask for this. Yes, you did, I countered. Every time you overspent, saying Nicholas will cover it. Every failed class you laughed off, knowing I'd pay. Every time you watched them guilt me and stayed silent. Brooklyn sobbed. I didn't comfort her. I didn't know it'd end like this, she said softly. That's the problem, I replied. You never thought it'd end. You assumed I'd keep fixing everything while you played pretend. Silence fell. She stood. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't answer. She moved to the door. I thought we could fix this. We can't, I said. Not until you all face life without someone cleaning up your messes. She left without another word. That was the last time I saw any of them in person. A week later, the bank confirmed the account separation. I used the $10,000 for a certification program I'd delayed for years, too busy bailing out my family. It led to a better job, higher pay, better benefits, total freedom. Weeks later, Mom called once, leaving a voicemail about missing me, saying things had spiraled and they wanted to move forward and fix the family. But there was no family to fix. Real family doesn't dangle shelter like a threat, sell your work computer, or demand thousands like you're a bank. They don't discard your worth when you say no. I deleted the voicemail, not out of anger, but freedom. Over the next few months, I built a new life. I traveled, met people who valued me for me, not what I could give. I rediscovered passions, photography, cooking, hiking, dropped years ago. For the first time, I wasn't living for what do they need, or how do I keep the peace. I was living for me. One day, I found an old photo. Halloween 2007, Brooklyn in a princess costume, me as a knight holding her hand on the porch. I smiled, loving that version of her. The sister who looked up to me, not yet taught that exploiting love is easier than earning it. But it's not 2007. It's now, and I'm not the family cash machine or a background character in their story. I'm the protagonist in my own.